Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Andrea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Stephanie Bohn, a highly skilled speech-language pathologist and the founder of Rooted at Home, a Fox Cities-based therapy practice that brings speech, language, and feeding support right to where families feel most comfortable, and this would mean into their home, meeting them at parks, joining them at childcare centers, or even virtually. Stephanie holds a master's in speech-language pathology, a bachelor's in communication sciences and disorders, and is a certified lactation counselor, so she knows her stuff. But what makes Stephanie truly special is her passion to help all families have deep conversations and stress-free meal times. This passion stemmed from a deep personal experience with her grandma, which she shares about in episode 1. In our 4 episodes together, we chat about early communication tips, picky eating, how therapy doesn't have to happen in a clinic to make a big impact, and how to utilize play to help kids develop healthy communication and eating skills. On a personal level, Stephanie was born and raised here in the Fox Valley, and she finds joy in reading, biking, baking all things sourdough, and spending time with her husband. Let's welcome Stephanie to the show.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. We are super excited to welcome Steph back into the studio. We have had some really great conversations about communication, what speech therapy is all about, and if you guys haven't listened to the first 2 episodes, definitely listen to those. But in this episode, we're going to be talking about feeding and chewing, swallowing, all the things that have to do with that, and picky eating. I don't know if a lot of people realize, like speech therapy, you think like, oh, just talking and how to form words and communication, but it's actually, Steph is very specialized in actually helping kids with feeding and all the things that have to do with that. So let's just start with the basics. What is feeding therapy and how is it connected to speech?
So feeding therapy is definitely an area within a speech therapist's scope of practice. We really look at addressing some of those areas with the chewing, swallowing, and the other aspects of feeding. We know now, right, so much more about like the sensory system and how that is contributing to picky eating. But I would say that it is definitely an area that parents have big concerns over. And
yeah, for sure.
And like, where do we go from there?
Right. And so like, let's just stay on picky eating, for example. So typically, is it because the kids don't like the flavor? Is it because of its, how it looks, its sensory? What is the reason behind picky eating usually?
I would say everything you just mentioned absolutely is true. There's definitely aspects of it that are different based on each food. Like there are foods that even as adults, right? Like I just don't like that because I don't like the taste of it. Or like shrimp for me is an absolute like no-go. No thanks. Texture, the smell of it, like anything with shrimp. Like it's something as an adult I just don't like.
Sure, yeah.
It becomes more of a problem when we have kids who are stuck on like 5 foods, 10 foods. These are the only foods I eat. I won't try anything. We have weight concerns, right? There's all those different like factors that come into play with it. So I think it's hard to say, oh, it's a problem when, because like what else is going on?
Yeah. And so when a parent notices that a kid is just eating 5 foods all the time, or if it's, if they are concerned about weight or anything like that, is that when they would contact somebody like you?
Yeah, it would be a great opportunity to start some conversation to learn more. And that's part of when we go into the evaluation and assessment. It's really diving in with the parents. What are they noticing?
Yeah.
What are those go-to foods? Can we draw any connections? And then, a big thing is meats. A lot of kids, meats and vegetables are just like not their thing. How can we interact with them? Because ultimately, when it comes to picky eaters and feeding therapy in general, of course, our ultimate goal is to have the children eat the food, right? Like in your mom mind, it's like, just eat this piece of broccoli.
Yeah, just eat it.
Right. But
yeah.
Okay, how else can we interact with that piece of broccoli before we even think about offering it to them? Can we paint, dab that broccoli in some paint and paint with it? Can we, find other ways to interact with it of they have to see it, smell it, touch it, interact with it before it's even going to get close to their mouth.
So is that a really good way of just starting to, especially when kids first start solids, is that a really good way of starting to show them? And speaking of solids too, I'm thinking of baby-led weaning.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you support?
I definitely support baby-led weaning. I think there's always a balance between what families are comfortable with, right? Sometimes when families are seeing these big stick long shapes and it's going into their infant's mouth and they're like, oh no. But there are definitely situations where we want to think about giving them that exposure, because pouches are super convenient and easy to feed. But if we don't also give exposure and opportunities for foods we have to chew, right? So what's what's your family's balance? There's no right or wrong way to do it. But I think the biggest thing when it comes to eating is just exposure and opportunities.
Well, and this kind of just makes me think too of prior episodes when we've talked to a myofunctional therapist too, talking about how much we've eaten soft foods and how that's forming mouth, how it's forming actually the palate and the structure of the mouth.
Yes.
And then speech and dental work. And I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole of that, but even just exposing them to those hard foods instead of pouches all the time, for example, soft things.
And pouches are great. When you're driving in between practice and you got to get from one point to another, that is absolutely a great time to get some of that nutrition in. But when we're at home and we're able to use a spoon, let's practice that. Just squeeze that pouch into the bowl and help your toddler or infant work on that spoon feeding, because that's a skill for the rest of their life that we want them to be able to use, and it uses their mouth, and all of that connects when we think about that communication piece. If I just have to suck out of a pouch and swallow, I'm not really using a lot of my mouth.
Well, and you said in the beginning that kids not liking foods or spitting them out, it could be a texture thing, it could be a different type of sensory thing, it could be I just don't like this flavor. So what are things that we should or shouldn't say to our kids when they're spitting this food out? Because I think as parents, this is honestly a very public and long frustration for parents. If their kids are picky in any way, they might not even be to the level where they only eat 5 foods, but if you go to someone's house for dinner and the kid is like, I don't like it, that's embarrassing for the parents. They're which is right or wrong. That's where the parent needs to maybe do some inner work too. But we all struggle with it as parents.
Right.
So kind of getting back to that, what are some things that we should say or not say to help understand why our child is spitting it out, but then also hear their perspective and figure out what to do in the future?
Yeah. Using positive language and just conversation around those foods. When a kid spits something out, if we were to say oh, you didn't like that, we're kind of planting a seed sometimes when we don't even know it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Oh, the last time you tried that, you didn't like it, but here, let's try again. Right? If we said to them oh, that surprised you, that yogurt was cold, or oh, that made a crunching sound. That was kind of a weird sound, wasn't it? That's a lot different feel than if we are kind of giving them how they should feel about it.
It's a really good point. Yeah.
So just thinking about keeping it positive and even telling them, maybe you are at that family gathering where your child isn't going to eat anything there, but maybe you bring some of their preferred foods and they join in. So maybe we put their preferred foods on the plates that everybody else is having at the party. But then maybe we tell them, hey, let's go pick one thing that's on the table that grandma made that you want to just look at. or let's just see how it feels on our finger to squish it. Like have that interaction. So it's including them in it, but we're not forcing them to try that bite, because nobody is going to succeed by pressuring your child or bribing them or convincing them like, oh, it's yummy. Okay, if you're going to put shrimp again in front of me, it's not yummy.
Yeah.
My mind is made up. So
I feel like we're talking about a couple different age groups here. We're kind of talking about the younger ones where they're really exploring new foods and they're spitting it out because literally it either made them gag or it was a texture thing, right? But then we're also talking about once they get to be 3, 4, 5, 6, they become more verbal and they become more stubborn, and they understand, depending on the household, that if I spit it out or if I say no, well, then I get my PB&J instead of having to eat whatever everybody else is eating. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about those younger years first. If a kiddo is gagging on food, or even worse, throwing it up, at what level should a parent be concerned, especially if it's not happening with a ton of different foods? Is that a sign of an allergy? Is that like I should really be calling Stephanie stat? How quickly should they be concerned?
I think that the biggest marker that families use and have is, their weight, right? Like, where are they falling for that? That's always like a concern that we want to like keep an eye on. But, if it's something that is, you're noticing like a trend, or, outside of the norm of like, hey, it's a couple foods, or, oh, they're really only eating crunchy foods, or they're only eating those really soft foods, right?
Or sweet.
Yeah. We're starting to see those patterns. That's, that can be a really great time to start that conversation before we get when we're 5, 6, and we're like, ooh, like they've been eating this way for the past 6 years. That can be a really great time when they're young, and really, gagging and spitting foods out is very normal. And although it doesn't look pleasant for us as, people who are joining in on that mealtime, kids have to figure out like what is too big of a bite. If we are constantly moderating that, right? Like they aren't going to feel that in their body. And we have natural, our body is naturally mechanically made to gag when something is too much or my body doesn't like it. And when you talked about, thinking about how they are having concerns and like, when do I call somebody? Again, going back to that gut instinct of trusting that, there's never, I guess, a bad time to call and reach out and kind of explore that further. But I'd say a lot of families that reach out are noticing patterns.
So as a kiddo is starting to eat food and grow up and kind of over their first couple years of eating food, what would you say is kind of the parent's role versus the child's role?
Yeah. So I had a family share with me once. The mom had said something along the lines of, it's my job to provide like the foods for my child to eat, that like I feel comfortable with and create like that environment. And it is my child's job to decide like how much they want to eat of it. Right. And I think sometimes we have an expectation from wherever, like you have to finish your plate, or you have to eat one strawberry and then I will be satisfied. But really like digging into that, like when are we going to trust our child? And that goes back even from like bottle feeding, right? Like I'm going to put 5 ounces in this bottle. Oh, they didn't eat all of it. Like, is something wrong? Should I make more? Like, should I make like, when are we going to trust our child's instincts that they are full? And then like, how is that validating for them, right? If you're like, hey, one more bite, and then we do the one more bite. What? Like if you say one more bite, like how do we have that be one more bite?
Oh man, this is such a balance in our brains as parents.
Yeah.
Because I think about if a kiddo is, say that they just had lunch and then they're like asking for a snack right away after.
That's what I'm
and you're
thinking
just
about.
Like feeling really frustrated, especially if you have things to do and you're like, this is like, I
this
don't
was
have
your time to eat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or, they're like, can I have an apple? Sure. They take one bite and say, I'm done. And you're like, this is hard because it's expensive.
Yes.
It's expensive to have to waste food. So I feel like this is such a constant battle in our brains as parents to try and allow them to learn.
Absolutely.
And they don't have the concept yet, especially when they're little, to know how much of this apple, if I eat the whole thing, how full will my belly be?
Right.
But at the same time, I feel like we as parents feel very manipulated as they start to get older, and they're asking for things that they like and not finishing them and leaving half a banana here. And I just bought the bananas. And so it can be really tricky.
Absolutely. And it's frustrating when, like you said, we have that higher level of, hey, like, I just bought those, or I want you to eat the whole thing. But that it can be a great opportunity when you're eating something. Hey, do you want to try a bite of this? So that you know that you're going to be eating that whole entire thing, or you're giving them like the opportunity. But I hear you, snacks and what you're offering and when you're offering. It is challenging because I think all of us, even as adults, like if I didn't have to eat a full meal and I could snack all day, that'd be great. Because like snack foods, who doesn't love snack foods
in general?
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So another thing I just want to quick share is there is actually so much research behind the fact that there are 32 steps to eating.
That's crazy.
Like the last step is putting it in your mouth and like getting it in there and chewing it and swallowing it.
Are you talking about like starting with going to the grocery store, or what do you mean? 32 steps is a lot.
So 32 steps of like it's already in your house. Like you have to tolerate it.
Like the shrimp is there.
Yep. It's on the table a foot away from me.
Okay.
Now we have to we have to tolerate it in our vision. We have to tolerate the smell of it. You have to tolerate touching it or using a utensil, right? Getting it like from your hand close to your face. There's all little steps within that of like, it has to touch your lips. It has to go past your, right? Like there's all these different steps of getting to that final place, because it's not as easy as just put it in your mouth. You have to like not gag at the thought of like trying it or seeing it.
You just had to use the shrimp example, right?
I know I did. Stephanie's like, didn't you? It's hitting her deep over there.
But I think that is really helpful, especially for those little years when they're just learning to understand how many pieces of those 32 steps could trigger them to have a response that's maybe more on the negative side.
Right. And then knowing that once you get to that last step of it actually gets into their mouth and let's say they spit it out, research has shown that you need to try a food at least 10 times before determining if you actually like it or not.
See, I've heard 3, and sometimes that's successful and sometimes it's not when I talk about my kids or me.
Well, and this is something I've used for my kids, and it's not research based, but it has seemed to work well for them, is that when they were little and they would say, well, 2 things. I could not stand it when they would just say, I don't like it.
Yeah.
So Daniel Tiger helped me understand the phrase, it's not my favorite.
Yeah.
So when they were little, I would always have them say, it's not my favorite. I felt like that was just much more respectful way to communicate to me after I just spent an hour in the kitchen cooking or if we're at somebody's house.
For sure.
But if my kids would say something wasn't their favorite, I would oftentimes say, well, that's okay. You just haven't grown that taste bud yet. Every night we grow new taste buds. So you should try it again.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's not tomorrow or the next day, but like a week later, hey, you might have grown that taste bud now. Yeah. Again, not research-based, but it has kept my kids open-minded to trying things. And they actually reference it now too, where they'll be like, oh, I think I grew this taste bud now.
I have said that to me. That's funny.
There's so many things as a parent that you have the ability, right, to like persuade your children. And while it's not research-based, there's research in that though, of like when we were talking about like that positive talk, right? Like we know if you're going to have that positive self-talk or just family talk about that, your kids are going to be more receptive and open to it. So,
and there might be research behind it.
You should do a study.
I mean, there are things where we don't like them when we're little and then we like them as we grow up.
Yeah.
She's done a study on 2.
Yeah. 2 kids. But you actually had a personal experience where you tested this theory of trying something 10 times. So share about that.
So I was always somebody that looked at avocados and was like, absolutely not. No, thank you. But I would eat guac because that had like other things that I liked.
Just
in
like,
it.
I don't like
different.
tomatoes, but I'll eat ketchup.
Or I don't
you
like
know?
potatoes, but I'll eat French fries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was something that I was like, okay, I wanna like get better at this and like tolerate it. So I did the 10 times on myself of trying it over in different ways. Like room temperature avocado is very different from like out of the fridge or with everything bagel seasoning on it.
Yeah.
You know, or like on toast or different ways. And now, you know, after getting a good workout in or just being hungry for breakfast, I crave avocados now and I buy them weekly.
Nice.
So it works.
It takes time, but
But don't
Yeah.
don't put pressure on yourself of like, oh my gosh, every single food has to be that way, because you still have to remember that you still have the ability to like make that choice.
well, and also thinking too, on your part, you're like, I want to like avocados because I know they're healthy for me. And I think, I mean, we can talk little kids, but even like a little bit older as they grow, you can start talking about like why we eat certain healthy foods and kind of having that positive relationship with certain food groups too.
Yes. And positive talk too of like, hey, like you don't have to put it here, or like you don't, like we can put it right here on your plate, or it doesn't have to touch, like giving those parameters of like, it's still on their plate, they're seeing it, they're interacting with, but like what can you do with it versus don't, right? Like don't do that is a very different sound.
One other tactic I tend sometimes to use too is like having it on having something they don't eat very much on the plate, but also like 2 other things that I know they'll eat.
Yes.
So sometimes it has worked where like, I don't know, like broccoli or something, cooked broccoli.
Yes.
My kids like it, but like before it was like, oh, they like this and this. I put the broccoli on and then they might take a bite.
Yes. Yeah. There's research behind that of always offering. Look at you, Andrea.
Look at you. Research over here too.
Yeah. And I was one where it really drove me nuts, where if I would make time to cook dinner and I would try and pick a dinner that I would hope they'd at least be open-minded to.
Yes.
But if I was skeptical and be like, I don't know if they're going to eat fajitas or not, then I would make sure that part of the meal is things like you're saying that they will eat. So maybe we have applesauce, and even though there's chopped up peppers in the fajitas, I also have raw peppers because I know they'll eat those.
Right. Yes.
Or I just happen to have boiled eggs out too because
so
I know
the
they'll eat them, but
protein.
it's like part of the meal, not making it seem like it's a special thing.
That's called like a preferred food, right? Like if we offer anybody a plate of like non-preferred foods, like that's going to be a tough sell.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so if we think about like, if you're going to be offering something and you still want them to try like something new, like let's always offer it with that preferred food so that there is some sort of like positive experience of like, I didn't show up to the table and like, now I'm not hungry anymore. And there's research behind that too. Like your brain and your thinking can like turn off your appetite.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
So like if you're served every single day at dinner, let's say, because that's our meal we eat at home, something you don't like, your brain will just like start to learn that it's like not hungry around that time of day.
Right. Or I just don't like dinners. I just want snacks.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about 32 steps from when it's in front of you to actually putting it and swallowing it. But I feel like if you were to add up all the steps of the experience of food, like you've talked about, I think in our last episode of like going to the grocery store and being involved in the making of food, there's probably 200 steps. Honestly, and the preparation of food. And so I know one thing that you talk about a lot is getting your kids involved in that process. And that could be going to the grocery store. It could be preparing it. It could be serving it. It could be picking out their own plate, putting their own, picking what they want on their plate instead of you making their plate for them. It could be cleaning up. And I know in our last episode together, we're going to be really honing in on the preparing piece, like being in the kitchen together, preparing food. But for those other steps, is there anything else that you would recommend for just helping to create this positive environment around food?
I think you hit so many great suggestions there, but the main theme behind all of those that you brought up was just including them. How can we involve them? I mean, there are so many things that we can talk about when it comes to including kids in mealtime. You could have a picnic outside. That's different than like sitting at the table. We could, go to the grocery store and pick out one thing that we're all going to try tonight, right? When it's that family experience, when we have the time, of course, there's just so many different ways that we can think about mealtime being differently. And a lot of times we're just on the go, like just grab something, we got to go, and that's life and that's okay. But maybe there's that one time that you're like, hey, we have a couple extra minutes. Like I'm going to have them smash the bananas with me for, making banana bread, or hey, let's go check on the muffins now that they're like in the oven. Like let's turn the light on. That's all, it's all a part of it.
This was a really great episode on, I think it's just really helpful to give us perspective as parents, because I know for myself, at least, I can get so caught up in just, I want my kids to grow up strong and healthy. And so when I'm looking at them, I'm like, are you getting adequate protein?
Yes.
Are we having healthy choices in the house? Yes. Are you choosing the healthy choices when you go other places? And so I get so hyper focused on how much I care about them.
Yeah. Yep.
That sometimes I think taking a step back and realizing, oh, there might be like actually a texture issue with that food for them is just helpful. So I found this conversation encouraging, and I hope that you listeners did as well. So Stephanie, one more time, for those who just popped onto this episode, what is the best way to contact you if they have a concern in their house, they just want to talk to you and find out if speech therapy might be a good fit for them? How do they get a hold of you?
Best way is to contact me on my website. It's rootedAtHomeLLC.com. And there's a contact us section on the website that you can fill out, and I will be in touch with you within a few days of receiving that.
Great. And like we just said, one of the big things that can help your kids maybe widen their own perspective on different foods is going to be involving them in the kitchen. And so for our last episode together, this is just going to be kind of more of a fun episode. Obviously, the basics that we've talked about, and developing communication together and developing a healthy relationship with food and expanding what they're willing to eat is all going to be related into their relationship with food in the kitchen and making it really fun. So we're going to do that in our next episode. I think you guys are going to love it. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.